All right, welcome back. Gosh, I'm so excited for this session. Shweta, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Al.
Hey, thank you for joining me today. You have been doing some super cool stuff there at Adobe, and I'm so excited that you're open to sharing today. If you would introduce yourself and a little bit about what you're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And also really excited to be here to talk about my two favorite topics, which is employee experience and HR technology. And I've been in this space for, let's just say, way longer than I'd like to admit, way longer before it was cool to say employee experience and to be in HR technology, but really passionate about these two things. Let's see, something about myself. I've been with Adobe for a little over a year and a half. Before that, I spent over a decade at Clorox and also with Deloitte and Chevron, and so the other consulting work that I've done in my past life. And I really do believe that, with employee experience, with HR technology, you can make a difference to a company's bottom line as well as the top line. Because also I do firmly believe that people is the number one asset that any company has. And so, if you are having trouble, kind of getting your C-suite or executive leadership team to kind of get behind that, absolutely have a conversation with me offline. Something about myself, well, I live in the Bay Area. I've got two girls and been here for a very, very long time. Let's see. One other caveat for this session. Again, love the space, but definitely not here to promote any particular technology or any other HR technology solution. And one other fun fact about myself is I'm a foodie. So with that, yeah. I'm ready to talk employee experience and HR technology.
All right, we'll talk about restaurant experiences when we wrap up too. So, all right, I'll get out of your way. You'll present for like 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll have a chat. So I'll get out of your way and have fun.
Sounds good. So speaking of being a foodie, all right, this is the first screen that I have to present. Al, can you see it okay? Got ice creams on it, so I'm going to assume that you can see it. Okay.
Can.
All right, and one might wonder, what's got ice cream has anything to do with employee experience and HR technology? And so, what I would ask today is, take a moment, look at all the pretty beautiful ice cream, pictures over here, and think about what is your favorite ice cream flavor. So I know we can't do fancy polls just yet. And so what I would do is just, if you have a pen or a paper, jot down what's your favorite ice cream flavor. Do you like it in cup or cone? Or do you prefer a single scoop or a double scoop? All right, that should be fairly easy, I think. Now what we probably need to think about, and this is the second piece of fun that I'd ask you guys to do, is think about your company and your employees' favorite ice cream flavor, and whether they like it in a cup or a cone, and then whether they like a single scoop, double scoop, more than 2 scoops. And I guess you're probably getting on to where I'm going with this, right? It depends. There is a lot of choices here, and it very much depends on the mood of the day, the stage of where your employee is in their journey. It also depends on, what do they want that day, right? And again, that's the point I'm trying to make with all of this fun is employee experience is a hard problem to solve. It is very multidextrous. I would say a lot of things entail what an employee experience could look like, right? Just like an ice cream, right? It could be the flavor, it could be the cone, it could be tons of other things on the ice cream. And so the key, I would say, and I know we call it employee experience, people call it worker experience, I like to call it people experience. The key is about being personalized, about making sure that it's consumable and that you're able to provide a more unified experience. And let me explain what I mean by personalized. Personalized doesn't necessarily mean every employee gets a unique experience for themselves, right? It does, but it also doesn't mean that you have to allow for so many technologies to be able to give them that personalized experience. What it means, though, is you should be able to identify the right personas within your company and identify what those personas are looking for. And it could be as much as, hey, it's location-based. I'm in San Jose and I need to consume information that is related to the location that I'm in. I am a contractor, and so I need to consume information that's related to a contractor or the business processes that I need to follow as a contractor. So I guess you get the point. Consumable is also, and I have it here as simple, it has to make sense to me in the moment that I'm looking for that experience. And so if I have to sign up for my benefits and I'm not getting the right experience and the moment passes, that doesn't make sense to me. The other thing about employee experience or people experience also is as long as it can be synthesized and unified, right? And what I mean by that is I don't want as an employee to be able to go to X place to get my payroll information, and then I have to go to Y place for my career, and then I also have to log out and then log back in to some other place to just kind of get what's up at the cafeteria. And then this doesn't work on my iPad, and then it doesn't work on my Mac, right? So it has to be unified and in the moment that I'm really looking for. So in other words, the whole idea of people experience or employee experience is you have to get them back to their jobs. That's what they're looking for. Get out of the way, let me do what I need to do, and then get back to being an engineer, a salesperson, a marketer, whatever that job might be. That's in the interest of the company, and that's what the employee is looking for as well. So with that, let's kind of get into this problem, right? And as we think about experience technology, right, as I said, at least the way I think about it is it is at least three-legged, if not more, right? It is about the physical workspace that you're in. As I mentioned, right, it's important to know what's on the menu at the cafeteria. It's also important to know that I can go book a conference room, that I have an ergo chair, that I can safely, now with a lot of what's been going on in the past year, safely walk into my office and can do my job. I can also get back to my family safely. So everything around that physical workplace experience. And then there is the digital workplace experience, which is around, can I do my work with my colleagues, with the business partners, with my customers, with my consumers, in a collaborative, cohesive way, right? Do I have the right productivity tools at my disposal? Do I have the right devices, the applications? So that's sort of the digital workplace piece of the people experience. And then what we call is as HR technology or the workforce experience, right? Do I know where I'm going in my career? Do I know what leave options I have available? Can I sign up for my well-being day at work, right? As a manager, do I have the right insights and analytics at disposal to make the right decisions that I need to make for my people? So those are the ways that I think of a cohesive people experience. And for that, it is really important to understand, as we were talking earlier, about the personas and the journey that each persona has, right? There are several things that I as an employee, or I as a contingent worker, or I as a vendor partner, or I as a manager or an executive interact with on a day-to-day basis. I have to make my personal data changes. I've just moved. I have to, as I said, apply for leave or planning a vacation. It is equally important around my learning and development, right? What training courses are available for me? And so it's really important as you think about HR technology and the experiences, where your persona is in their journey. And I think, again, the interesting part is, as I said earlier, each employee, each persona may be in a different place in their journey. And so how do you serve up the right experience for them for where they are in their journey, I would say is the critical part. All right, so then when we understand where they are in their journey, then we have to understand how we help them via technology to get the best experience that they're looking for in their journey. And this is when it starts getting fun and interesting, right? So I have this slide, and this slide could look much bigger and much more complex, as you all probably know. This is actually just a blurb from the 2020 technology report that Josh Bersin publishes. And I think it's just one of the very many slides that he has around the upcoming technologies that serve up our employees, right? In the talent space, in the learning space, in the collaboration space, with analytics and insights, AI, ML, like you name it. And the market, I guess, for these technologies is just huge. And all of these technologies are trying to solve a problem. And then some of these technologies are trying to solve multiple problems. But I think one thing that I, at least in my experience, can say is that landscape of HR technology for any HR technologist is multi-vendor. You know that there is no one vendor that can solve all your needs, all your customers' needs. And when I say customer, I mean HR's needs, your HR business partners' needs, your talent team's needs, your rewards team's needs via a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet out there that I know of right now. And if you do, please ping me after this session. And so the point I'm trying to make is we know it's a multi-vendor, sort of multi-hub, multi-layer landscape. And so then the challenge is, how do you serve up that unified, personalized, simple employee experience when you know that there are so many factors, so many tools, so many technology vendors trying to kind of serve up individual employee experience as it relates to payroll and as it relates to benefits and as it relates to performance management, learning, right? You know it. And that is the fun part of this challenging problem. This is an interesting, and this was a poll that I was hoping to do today. And again, maybe if you guys have a pen and a paper or a way to kind of think about this, if you could only pick one, who do you think is the consumer of HR technology, right? And that's the fun part, right? Sometimes the HR organization thinks it's the HR organization. The talent team always thinks that they're the primary consumers of HR technology and that everything needs to revolve around talent technologies. So does the compensation and the ERC. The service delivery part is really, really important as we think about HR technology. And then if you were to think of, in today's world, in your companies, who is the primary responsible party for employee experience? And I would love to kind of get feedback, Al. I don't know if we can do that after and hear from folks. Who in their organization is taking ownership and responsibility for employee experience? Is it HR and HR technology? Is it the responsibility of the manager? Is it the facilities team that has a role to play? Or is it IT, right? If I don't have my laptop on time and I'm a new hire, there is no employee experience to be had. And so, again, think of it as, the answer is obviously all of them, right? And then how do you bring all of them together to kind of serve up the right employee experience? So with that, I think I'll just have one other slide. And I kind of bring it back to employee experience is all about the HR technology, so the feedback and the recognition and the recruiting technology and learning for an employee, the service delivery mechanism for employee. But it's as much about the tikka masala at the cafe. And with all of that, as you start putting together your HR technology landscape, do not forget to serve the ice cream, because that's what the employee really cares about. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Al, I'm going to stop presenting here if I can. But I hope that that's given enough food for thought for us to have questions.
It absolutely does. And thank you for that. And so I'm going to pick up on a couple of things that you said. And if any of the audience members, participants want to ask a question, do so in the Q&A section on the right, or the chat or the feed. But there's two things that jumped out to me. Number one is the idea of giving time back and being very conscious that we all have limited capacity, and that many times, whether it be an HR process or certain things the organization is doing or not doing, puts a stress on someone's time and ability to focus on value-added work. So that construct of capacity and really giving people time back, is that something that you stepped into as a concept? Is that something that you had to socialize? Is that a governing kind of concept for the employee experience initiative? Can you speak to that as a concept, how broadly it's understood and where it came from?
Right, and make sure I understand when you say giving back people time, Al, do you mean, as I said, right, get out of the way?
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I mean, I guess as a construct, again, and it's interesting, right, because we were talking about sort of the mission statement and what should be the vision of the HR technology team. And now I'm specifically talking HR technology, but employee experience, right? What is the vision? And as I said, right, it is absolutely about, and the unique part about employee experience is every one of us is the consumer of employee experience, right? So if you were to think about just individually yourself, you do want to get back to work, right? And I think that construct comes from the place of allowing your employees the experience that they're looking for sure, but at the same time, engagement comes from making sure that they are, successful at what you've got them to do, and that is about getting them back to work. And so I think that's where it comes from.
With that, I just want to jump, because these questions that you posed, I think, are really insightful, and I think you would agree that there's an element of an "and" in the response, that who's the focus, but you actually put out a very challenging question, like, who's number one? Who would you choose? Can you answer your own question in that regard? And why?
Yeah, and so I'll give you a little bit of context to that, right? I think we, as a culture, human beings, and we're looking for that one nose to touch, or that one throat to choke, right, so to speak. And one interesting concept that at least we practice here at Adobe is around a DAISY. And I'm sure you guys have heard the concept of a RACY. But a DAISY is who's your driver, who's the approver, who are the collaborators, and then who are the people that you need to inform. And that's how we think about any project, any program, any concept, any strategy that we're looking to implement. And so I'm not trying to dodge your question by any means, but what I'm suggesting is that if you have that level of clarity on who's driving it, and in my head, the driver of employee experience is that triangle. It is that a three-legged stool around workplace technology, workforce technology, and sort of the digital workplace experience, so that like the physical and the digital. But I would say, though, I think it depends on where you are in your journey as a company, right? I mean, if you're a much smaller company, or you're just starting out, for example, right? I think you'll have to define what is it that you're looking for. And if that does mean, hey, I want to make sure that the laptops are in the hands of my people the minute they start, so they can be as productive as they can be, then you focus and you make the driver your infrastructure and IT team.
Right.
So, and this is just an example, right? I mean, if you're a 100,000 people company and you know you've got to get that message across for what your culture is trying to drive, or, you know, if you're looking to be a company that's 5,000 people and want to be 6,000 people next year, then talent acquisition. So I will kind of map it back to your strategic priorities as a company and your strategic priorities as a function within either HR or IT or wherever you sit, right, to determine who is that driver to drive that cohesive experience. But then everybody else is a contributor for sure.
Right. It's, you know, to just ask a very basic question. And I had two questions in mind. I had to choose one. I had to be mature for a second. So I had asked a variant of this in the last session with Samantha Woods of Orange, and I spoke to it earlier. It's this concept of, you know, first who, then what, and then think about how. And you just alluded to it, where we have workplace, which is screams facilities. We have, you know, workforce technology, which screams HR. We also have, you know, digital transformation and IT, you know, playing a role, and increasingly those are affecting the employee experience, you know, how people are resourced, you know, what they can and cannot do and so forth. So how did this come together there at Adobe, and how does it live now in terms of, you know, who's in the room to have these discussions? Is it you facilitating point-to-point meetings, or are you actually getting together on a recurring basis? If so, at what frequency? Can you just speak to a little bit about that, like the who is involved?
Yep. And I actually, and again, Adobe is not perfect, right? We're all trying, and we're all striving sort of to get there. But it's exactly what you just said, Al. We do think that it is a multi-layer problem, and there are certain things obviously that sit fairly and squarely within the HR technology space, which obviously I am responsible for. You know, be it the talent technologies or the operational technologies or service delivery. You know, we know that fairly sits within the HR technology space. But our goal definitely is to kind of bring these parties together. We've just started to do that. So I wouldn't say that, you know, traditionally that's what we've been doing. We've evolved for sure. We have a way mature organization from a digital workplace technology perspective, as well as, you know, from a physical workplace technology. And I think the HR technologies at least is trying to catch up a little bit. But we definitely see this as a cohort that we need to build and kind of think about what our sort of true North Star is as it relates to employee experience, and then rally those forces.
Got it. And so just to play that back, you're constantly striving to improve the alignment and cohesion among those formerly disparate groups. And so that invites the question for me, did this evolve in response to COVID and remote work, do you think? Or,
I think that's a really good question. And, you know, I think what has happened is the tragedy, or as we call it, COVID has definitely sort of catapulted that conversation. But I would say, at least at Adobe, we had started to have that conversation, right? I mean, experience is what we're in the business of. And so, and I would actually say even before Adobe, right? So even, you know, my tenure at Clorox, we're having the conversation around what people cares about. And how do we want to serve it up to them, right? And so I wouldn't say that this conversation has just started to happen, but definitely COVID has, to your point, brought some of these functions together in a more cohesive manner, where they might have been trying to solve their own individual experience, you know, problems. And so I think this has kind of brought it together. We're absolutely considering what future of work needs to look like every other company. And this is where you do need all of these, you know, groups to come together.
And so, you know, there's employee experience out here. There's future of work out here. Is the employee, are you calling it an employee experience team that, you know, brings all these groups together? is it future of work team? I mean, what's the overarching, construct that holds this together?
Yeah, and I actually, I don't think those are exactly the same things, right? So I do want to make sure that we at least understand that COVID or no COVID, you've got to solve for people experience, right? And I mean, as I said, right, it has brought it together in a more cohesive fashion, but at the same time, HR technology or employee experience technologies has always had eyes on streamlining, simplifying, providing a unified employee experience. Mm-hmm. So that's always been the case. What is happening today at Adobe, at least, is that future of work has brought these teams together. So I think to answer your question, to specifically, address what future of work needs to look like, we have a future of work construct that we're working on, and we are trying to see how we can, I would say, incorporate employee experience as we think about our future of work construct. But I do think that even irrespective of the future of work construct, we need to continue to solve for that cohesive employee experience.
Got it. So I have a couple more questions on that, and then Rachel asked the question in the chat. The question that I have, just to finish that line of thinking, is you mentioned journeys, mm-hmm. and you mentioned, obviously just now future of work, and there's personas that are often talked about mm-hmm. when designing journeys. So are these, I say formerly disparate groups, are they all involved in designing these journeys, or is that an HR-centric approach? Can you, again, I'm very interested on not only myself, but on behalf of the community, because I've seen many organizations struggle with it.
Yeah.
Like, who should be in here? It's worth people's time. So thoughts there?
Yeah. And again, as I said, right, I'll put that out on the table. By no means we're perfect, and we're all still trying to learn. And actually, this is something that I would love. That's a really good question. I'd love to kind of hear from how other companies are looking at it. I will say, at least at Adobe, there is one journey, right? I would say, right? And I think that's the bigger picture that you want to see, right? And these personas, right, whether they're a contingent worker persona or an employee persona, what we need to map is sort of their end-to-end journey, right? Mm-hmm. And as a pre-candidate and as a candidate, and then once they become a new hire, right? What are sort of the things that has to happen? So I think we're not there yet. I will say that, but our goal is to kind of bring these people together to mark and define what that one journey looks like for each mm-hmm. persona. And then there are various stops, and we go back to that accountability and DAISY, right? There are certain things around onboarding that's a responsibility of HR technology, and then there is a responsibility of IT, right? That's an area where we see. The other thing I will say, which we are trying to do, is define our employee experience technology strategy. And what I mean by that is, I kind of go back to what I was saying, right? What is the strategic direction that the company is looking to take? And let's assume future of work is one of the strategic initiatives that the company has. As you define your employee experience tech strategy, or HR tech strategy, as we are calling it, right? You want to absolutely make sure that you're clear on what are those strategic pillars, right? And define those strategic pillars. And I would urge everybody to do that, right? Kind of map it back to what your corporate objectives are. What are the objectives of HR? What is the objective of your chief people officer as it relates to employee experience? And then I think it's, as we think about HR technology in particular, right? It's really important. I think I shared the landscape with you, and that's just a tip of the iceberg, right? There's so many options out there, and that's not just related to HR technology, right? If you think about collaboration tools, and if you think about digital workplace experiences, again, a lot of options. And so it's really important to get the right guidelines, the right set of we believes in place that'll allow you to kind of put that framework together, right? It's almost like, you give a piece of paper to a child and you ask them to color, and you still want them to color within the boundary that you give them, right? They can choose any color they want, but you still want to make sure that they're coloring within the framework that you've provided. And then I would say system and data architecture, right? And let's not forget the insights and the analytics piece. And again, I'm perhaps preaching to the choir, but what is it that you're looking to drive, right? That's really important as you think about journey and mapping that journey, because you can get very creative, but you have to remember what your true north is, right? What are the metrics that you care about? What are the guidelines, as I said, right, that you really care about? And that would be different for different companies, again, depending on the company's journey and where they are in their own journey.
You got to do the work, it sounds like. So I'm going to toggle over to Rachel's question. I'm just going to read it verbatim so I don't mess it up. In a large company where corporate experience is owned by HR and retail experience by operations, at what point do you think that they will intersect, or should it be kept separate?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for asking that, Rachel. I wish I knew the answer. I'll be very honest, and I'll put it out there on the table. I can provide you my thoughts on it, my point of view. The ultimate goal, at least, is to provide that consumer grade experience to your employees, right? Your employees are used to shopping via one click, and your employees are used to ordering whatever they want from wherever they want via that one click. So the goal, at least, is to provide that experience. Is it going to happen, together, right? Do you, if I understand your question correctly, right? At what point do you think that'll intersect? I feel like from a capability standpoint, it should intersect, right? We should be able to get there where we can give our employees, our people, the same experience that we're giving our consumers. Don't ask me when. I feel like there's a lot of work to be done to be able to get there. And then this goes back to what I was saying around having a vision and a strategy, and then a tech strategy to support that, because that's going to kind of help you get there, or at least kind of go into that direction. But I absolutely think that it should happen.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit of color to that, given my retail background. And I see, Rachel, that you're at CVS, and I can share some models and ideas as a follow-up. But in short, I think personally, going back to my experience at Gap and working with other retailers, is that there are certain touch points that need to be had between the employee experience and customer experience. That being said, that's probably, I'm making this up on the fly, probably 20% of the work. I think it needs to be done because it creates the how, or the why rather. These are the downstream impacts on the customer experience and in turn financial outcomes. But there's a lot of processes that are HR related that are more mundane that aren't going to go that far downstream. That's my own personal take, but I think it's going to depend, to your point, Shweta, on the organization. Bob has a question that I think is very poignant, particularly given what has transpired recently or last week with the launch of Viva Experience Platform by Microsoft. That being that they're incorporating learning into their experience, language, and platform, obviously with LinkedIn Learning and them owning LinkedIn itself. So any thoughts about your application of building in learning experiences to your employee experience initiative? Is this something that you're already doing? Is it on your roadmap? What are your thoughts regarding learning?
Yeah, and again, thank you, Bob. Such a pertinent question. And I'll be very honest with you, we are a little behind on the learning curve, I think, as an industry, right? I mean, there's so many learning tools available. I was just reading, I think the market is over $250 billion as it relates to L&D and making that sort of available either to your executives and to your managers and to your employees, et cetera. But as it relates to kind of mapping it back to the overall employee experience, I feel like there's a lot of work to be done. I think, again, I would go back to, at least for me personally, it absolutely is on the strategy and it's absolutely on the roadmap. And that's the good news about having that EX tech strategy, right? Is you can help inform your 3 to 5 years or 1 to 3 year roadmap, especially at Adobe, right? Because, we own the learning solution as well. Right. And so, how do you kind of map it to that overall employee experience? I mean, again, micro learning is something that's, again, is not new, right? It's been happening for a while now. And that is about, making sure that you can get the right content to the right people at the right time that they're looking for, right? So that's one aspect of learning. There are certain other things as you think of learning, and we use, again, in the moment learning. So if you're in the middle of a compensation planning process and you have to know how to do it, or what are some of the parameters that I should be looking at as I do compensation planning. That kind of learning, you can make it available within that journey itself, right? But again, as I said, a long way to go before we can kind of incorporate learning within the actual experience.
Yeah, that brings me to the question I had earlier. We're talking a lot about the need for a mental model to align around, because employee experience can be very esoteric.
Yep.
It can be confusing. By its very nature, it is complicated. That's, in my view, is something that we have to accept. But in terms of a guiding framework for what it is, I saw your journey map there. Is that the mental model that you put forth? Is there something that is, you mentioned the pillars earlier, and I don't want you to, compromise anything that's, proprietary to Adobe, but how do you gain this alignment around this potentially, esoteric topic?
Yeah, and you're right, Al. It is not easy. I feel like that is the work, and again, it's easier said than done in terms of, hey, seep it into the corporate strategy, right? Because again, that itself could be fairly vague in certain cases, right? And so how do you kind of hook on to that? I will though say, some of the strategic pillars, again, to consider. Or the thinking around definitely the journey map, right? So what is important for your employee and when? I would definitely also think about the capabilities that the business is looking to drive, right? And again, it depends on where you are in your own journey as a company, but definitely look at the capabilities. And if you don't have, map your capabilities. This is something that we are doing here at Adobe, and I'm helping lead, is map your capabilities to that journey, right? So definitely map, and think of the talent capabilities, right? If learning and development is a capability that you're looking to do, where does that hit your employees, or your employees are looking for that in their own journey, as an example. So definitely look at, the capabilities. The other tool that, if you haven't started doing, is think of that business architecture. So not the technology architecture just yet, but as you think about the capabilities and the journey map, what does that business architecture look like? What does that process flow map looks like? And then kind of hinge your, I would say, technology strategy, your data and system architecture on your business architecture. And I would say that is going to help you again with that true north of, okay, because it is not something, I will say again, I haven't found a silver bullet. There is no one tool there. Maybe Microsoft Viva is going to do it. I don't know. Maybe IBM or Oracle is going to find a magic bullet, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But having said that, again, so identify. The other thing I would say is, again, and this is what I personally at Adobe, really struggle with. How do you prioritize, right? Because as you start thinking about your capabilities, you will know and you will realize that there's a lot of work to be done on all of those capabilities. And so, again, kind of map it back to that the strategic pillars that you think are the right ones for your organization, and then I think that will help kind of drive that.
Yeah, you actually, the reason I smiled like that is that was going to be my question, is everything that you're talking about screams prioritization. It's like, how are we going to enhance a certain process through the adoption potentially of a new technology? How's that going to impact the employees? How's that going to impact the data that we're generating, and in turn, the analysis that we're going to be doing? I mean, this, again, I have been accused over the years, like, Al, it's too much. Make it more simple. And I'm like, I would love to.
I know, I agree.
However, if we make it too simple, we're going to lose some of the distinctions that are really, really important. So would you, echo that? I know we all have a desire for, simplicity. And when we talk about a journey map, I think that, gets to, the conceptual simplicity, but there is work associated with this. And I really appreciate you, just saying that, hey, we are a brand that's known in the world for doing employee experience and customer experience, and we're still learning and doing what we can to improve over time. So, can you talk about the need to appreciate, the tentacles and all the complexity involved?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, Al. Again, and you're right. Everybody's looking for that simplicity, right? Mm-hmm. But again, I go back to my ice cream flavor slide, right? Wouldn't we all love if everybody could just love a chocolate ice cream, on a cone, and that would be the end of it, right? But we know that that's not the reality, and so I couldn't agree more. The answer, though, I would have is, come up with a simple process to get there, right? Again, don't think like you have to solve for workplace experience and physical experience and workforce experience all at the same time. Mm-hmm. Definitely, again, go back to the strategic priorities that your company is looking to drive. And if it's a 200 people organization, that's focus is, as I said, to get onboarded and quickly get a laptop and all the applications loaded on that laptop so that they can get back to work ASAP. Then that's what your priority is, right? And if you're a 10,000 people company who's looking to make sure that there is engagement, then you have the right metrics that your executives can have and the right data available to them, then that is your priority. Wow. And so figure out what is it that you are looking for, your company is looking for, your people function is looking for, and then I would say, again, if you have a silver bullet, call me.
Well, I'm not aware of one. So yeah, that's my job to look out for such things. And Microsoft Viva is exciting. I have been in touch with Microsoft folks, and they will admit that they're on a journey as well. And I know it's an overused term, but it's very appropriate for this because it is, to our point, complex, and it needs to kind of have a guiding framework, needs to have the right people in the room, and there needs to be patience and prioritization and all these things. As we wrap up here, I want to ask you a final question, at least from me. If anybody else wants to put in a question, please do so. But my last question is this: is that you have been at this longer than most. That being said, you are admittedly an ongoing learner, which then invites the question, how do you stay abreast of what's happening in the employee experience, space? What's your go-to platforms or thought leaders, influencers? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that question because, you and I were talking about this the other day as well. And there is definitely an opportunity, Al, I feel, in this space to even streamline some of the content that we're serving up to people like me, right, who are looking for, and the way I would say, at least I have been at it is, I think of it as it's almost like a triangle, right? So I definitely would say one of the things that drive in terms of where we need to go, as Adobe, as my personal EX technology learning is seeped in what the strategic objectives are, what the capabilities we want to build, right? What are some of the things that we want to do from a business perspective? But absolutely want to bring in the outside perspective, the best practices, where is the world going? And I go back and say this to Adobe all the time, right? I'd rather not chase, I'd rather be ahead of the curve. Now, that's not always possible, but you want to see what are the future trends that are coming in this space. And I would definitely say the third is keep employee top of that pyramid, right? As I was just talking about, right? They are your consumer. And so, which again is great because you're a consumer yourself, right? So think of it from that perspective. Some of it is definitely gut, right? Hey, do I go with ServiceNow employee experience platform, or do I go with Adobe experience management or, experience platform, right? You've got to see what makes sense for you. So definitely some of those decisions, you have to make it based on facts. You have to make it based on data. You have to make it based on the architecture that is within your company. But in order to keep yourself abreast, I would say there's definitely scope, but some of the people that, again, definitely PAFOW is something that we've been following. Michelle, from our company has been part of it for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
There is definitely Unleash. There's definitely, I would say, HR tech conferences. Josh Person, somebody that we've worked with in the past as well. So these are some of the people that we've worked with. But I would say globally, again, there's opportunity. It would be lovely to get a platform, just like employee experience platform, to go and get all of that, goodness out there. But yeah, we're all trying.
We're all trying. We're just chopping wood. Well, hey, Shweta, thank you so much
Absolutely.
for sharing, and thank you for what you've accomplished, and thank you for your vulnerability, your insights, your ideas, your wonderfulness. So yeah, super appreciate you. Keep up the great work, and look forward to following up with you before too long.
Absolutely, yeah, and happy to be here. And again, I'm definitely excited about where we're going. As an industry, as it relates to employee experience and as it relates to people experience. But if you have any questions that I can help with, definitely reach out to me.
All right, we'll do. All right, be well.
Thank you. All righty.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.